classroom.
My kids have missed it immensely, being in classroom and in person.
A new report says it is critical for kids to return to school in the fall and that classroom learning is essential for their well-being. We'll look at some of the recommended measures for a safe return to class. Plus,
much more needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims calls for urgent action to combat Islamophobia in the wake of recent deadly attacks. And
we are going to have staff trained and ready to support fans and making them feel comfortable here in the ballpark.
The Boys of Summer return to the Rogers Centre in less than 2 weeks. We'll look at what fans can expect when they're back in the stands. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with breaking news tonight from the Lower Dawnlands, where police are searching for a suspect in a fatal hit and run. It happened just after 9 o'clock near Cherry and Polson Street. Police say 2 pedestrians were struck by a truck, the driver then fleeing the scene. One person was pronounced dead at the scene. The other sustained non-life-threatening injuries. The collision is believed to be deliberate. Police say there were reports of a dispute just prior to the accident. The truck involved is described as having a matte military green wrap, and the driver is described as a white male in his 20s, 5'10", slim, wearing a white shirt and black pants. Roads are closed in the area for the investigation. Our other top story tonight, a new report says it is critical for kids to return to in-person learning in September and has recommended some measures to ensure students stay safe. The report, released by Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table, is backed by doctors from children's hospitals across the province. As our Dalia Ashray reports, the group is calling for a normal school year, including the return of all sports and extracurriculars.
My kids have missed it immensely, being in classroom and in person.
Karen Morrison is a mother of 2 in Muskoka. She's ready to have her 2 kids return to in-class learning. School closures in Ontario lasted 19 weeks in total, the most compared to any other province or territory. Dr. Ronald Cohen is the president of the Hospital for Sick Kids in Toronto and co-author of the new reports.
Start with their social interaction, start with extracurricular activities that they're going to have the chance to be children again.
The report said remote learning has worsened educational inequities and hurt students' access to physical activity, social interactions, and much-needed food programs. Morrison is concerned about classroom sizes, but she says with more people fully vaccinated, she's cautiously optimistic.
The drawbacks of kids not being in school far outweigh the risks of them going back to school. Not having to socially distance is wonderful. Sports, if they can come back, trips, assemblies.
Dr. Cohen says there is a way to ensure a safe return in the fall.
Measures in place like masking, distancing, and cohorting that can be adjusted based upon what the epidemiological situation is going to be in a certain local public health unit.
According to the report, when the risk is considered low, masks should be optional indoors and is not needed outdoors. Distancing and cohorting is also not necessary. In a moderate or high-risk scenario, the experts recommend elementary students wear masks and be placed in cohorts. For high school students, it recommends them to wear masks, but not to be placed in cohorts. Educational Union leader Karen Littlewood says she would like to see a phased approach.
Exactly. I'd rather not be reactionary. I'd rather be proactive and know that we have measures in place and that numbers are better. And then you gradually release those protections that are in place as opposed to waiting for something to happen.
Permanent measures such as vaccinating all those who are eligible, having adequate indoor air quality and proper cleaning are also recommended in this report. The Education Ministry says it is investing $500 million in improving air quality and that all education workers and students aged 12 and up are being prioritized for double vaccination before the start of the school year. Dalia Ashray, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, Ontario's universities and colleges have been told to prepare for a return of campus life this fall. And that includes in-person learning and no physical distancing. However, as Talia Ricci explains, the province has told the institutions to have backup plans.
Don't go trying. This Queen's University drama student is relieved to hear that performing online was just a stage.
I really want classes to be in person again.
Today, at a funding announcement at Western University, the Minister of Colleges and Universities confirmed a reopening plan was shared with post-secondary schools.
Which will be a full return to in-class and on-campus activities, no social distancing in place, but the use of face masks will be mandatory.
Students actually want to return to campus. Students have reported that both the quality of their education as well as their mental health have been negatively impacted by virtual learning.
Seeing campuses full of life again is something that many students have been hoping for. Schools will still have the flexibility to offer teaching in a variety of ways, including virtual and hybrid models. Ramona Pringle teaches some courses focused on the digital world. She's optimistic about a mix of in-person and online.
There's a triage that's been happening over the past half a year or more of what do we need to get up and running in person fastest. And what's very exciting to me is the notion of hybrid, and really that what we're entering into now isn't the kind of return to campus. It's the beginning of the new reality of what university can be.
For Logan Cohen, there are some back to school nerves.
That worries me a little bit. I just want to make sure, I got vaccinated. I think everybody should get vaccinated.
The ministry says it's told the institutions to have plans for how learning will continue in the event of COVID-19 outbreaks. Some institutions are requiring students and staff to be vaccinated if they're on campus or living in residence. But the province isn't mandating this.
The ministry is encouraging post-secondary to work with their local public health units, but mandatory vaccines are not something that we are ensuring that post-secondary institutions have.
For Cohen, she's just ready for the show to go on.
I really want things to go back to normal so that I can showcase what I'm there to do, which is perform. That's my program.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Fully vaccinated travelers will soon be able to visit Canada again, starting with Americans. Federal officials say thanks to millions here stepping up to get their shots, the country is in a better position to further ease border restrictions.
On August 9th, a number of important changes at the border will come into effect to allow fully vaccinated United States citizens and permanent residents who are currently residing in the United States to enter Canada for non-essential purposes. Travelers will have to be fully vaccinated with the Health Canada authorized vaccine at least 14 days before entering the country.
All visitors must use the government's ArriveCan portal to submit their information. And starting September 7th, Canada will also allow fully vaccinated travelers from all other countries to enter without quarantine. Children under 12, currently not eligible to get a vaccine, can skip quarantine, but are advised to avoid group settings. There won't be a mandatory COVID-19 molecular test upon arrival for these individuals, but border officials may randomly request some visitors get tested. Foreign visitors to Canada will also have to follow provincial and territorial public health measures. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, another hot and muggy one today.
Yeah, that's right, Kelda. We had the 3 H's, hot, hazy, humid. It was all there, and we're going to still have the humidity into tomorrow, but really seeing some changes coming. Daytime highs today, yeah, you can see kind of so many on the border there with 30 degrees, but never mind that, humidex values in the mid-30s, in some cases even a little bit higher than that. So what's going to be happening? We have the clear conditions overnight tonight into tomorrow, and yes, we still get into some of the haze from the smoke in our skies, but what happens as that cold front approaches, not much activity in the early morning hours, you can see that, but by the time we get towards midday, we'll start to see some development. This is kind of some outlier activity, so a few areas will see this towards midday, but as we get into the later afternoon, early evening, the greatest chance of showers and even thunderstorms coming through the GTA, and then into the evening kind of blowing up into southwestern Ontario as well, and a few little light showers linger into very early Wednesday morning, and then that should be the end of it. Tonight, 20 degrees. Tomorrow, 29. Still feeling like we're in at least the mid-30s, if not warmer, Kelda.
Thanks, Colette. A national summit on Islamophobia in Canada will take place later this week. It comes after 4 members of a Muslim family were killed in a targeted attack last month in London. Ahead of the meeting, the National Council of Canadian Muslims is releasing its own set of recommendations on how all levels of government can tackle anti-Muslim hate. Dale Manukduk has this story.
Mohammed Aslam Zafis was stabbed to death last summer volunteering at the IMO Mosque in Rexdale. He screened everyone who came in for COVID-19. Omar Farouk is president of the mosque.
He made sure that everyone was following the guidelines and the protocols and everything in place in order to protect each other from furthering this pandemic.
In honor of him and other victims of Islamophobic hate crimes, community leaders gathered to call on all levels of government.
No more Quebec City mosque killing. No more London terror attacks. No more death visited at our doors.
The National Council of Canadian Muslims released 61 recommendations. Some of the recommendations include funding for a proposed national support fund for survivors of hate-motivated crimes, a federal anti-Islamophobia strategy by the end of 2021, provincial legislation that bars white supremacist groups from rallying on provincial property, and a review of school curriculum with an anti-Islamophobic lens.
We want their commitment to timelines for action. And as we see daily attacks against our community members since London, much more needs to be done, and it needs to be done now.
The Canadian Council of Muslim Women says that in the wake of the killing of the Afzal family in London, Ontario, there's been increased harassment towards Muslim women. The alleged hate-motivated killing of the family sparked numerous protests condemning anti-Muslim racism. While most recommendations lay with the federal and provincial governments, there are a few that can be dealt with at the municipal level.
Bylaws should also address clearly hateful verbal assaults and give authorities the ability to ticket and fine when necessary.
In 2020, hate crimes in Toronto alone increased by 50% compared to 2019. 133 of the 210 reported crimes were race or religion-based. 2021 data is not available as cases are still before the courts and others still have to meet the Crown's threshold for hate-motivated crimes. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Ontario's Court of Appeal has upheld the conviction of Constable Michael Theriault, the off-duty officer convicted of a 2016 attack on Whitby man Defonte Miller. Miller spoke to reporters today, calling the court's decision to dismiss an appeal a step in the right direction.
I feel like the decision today was obviously a huge step forward, because, I feel like the acknowledgement that racism plays in police interactions, not only in my situation specifically, but other people who be going through the same situations as me, it was very important.
Theriault was convicted earlier this year of assault in connection with the December 2016 attack on Miller. Miller was 19 at the time. His serious injuries included the loss of an eye. Theriault and his brother were accused of chasing him and beating him with a metal pipe. They said they were trying to arrest the teen for allegedly breaking into the family vehicle and that they acted in self-defense. Today, Miller's lawyer highlighted passages from Justice Michael Taluk's appeal judgment, pointing to the part anti-Black racism played in the incident.
The trial judge was correct to consider the social context of anti-Black racism and its effect on Mr. Miller's actions and how he was treated on the night in question. It is common sense that being a Black man in our society could have affected Mr. Miller's trust in law enforcement and the criminal justice system more broadly.
Theriault was sentenced to 9 months in jail for the attack on Miller. He was initially charged with aggravated assault and obstruction of justice, but was acquitted along with his brother. A Black civil servant is speaking out about her treatment on the job at the Immigration and Refugee Board's office. Monica Agard says a senior colleague made a racist remark to her, then wouldn't apologize. She says he later went on to become her supervisor. Agard alleges her complaints were never properly addressed. As Farah Morali tells us, she's not the only Black civil servant to allege discrimination at work.
Nearly 2 years later, it's a conversation Monica Agard still gets emotional recounting.
And that's when he made his comment. We should go back to the good old days when we had slaves. And you pause for a second because it hits you.
She alleges those words were spoken to her by a senior colleague at the Immigration and Refugee Board.
When I talk about this, I get so distressed, and I don't know if it's not only the statement, but it's inaction that is doubly hurtful.
She says the same colleague later went on to become her supervisor. That's when she filed a formal complaint. Agard alleges her concerns haven't been taken seriously by the IRB.
First, to make the comment and then to have no action or no consequences, I take it as this is how they see me. And in general, the black workers.
It's not the first time black civil servants have spoken out about racism. In December, a group filed a proposed class action lawsuit against the federal government, alleging discrimination.
The damages that black workers have faced and continue to face, it's real and it's ongoing, and black workers need help right now.
In a recent court filing, the group is asking that the government create a fund immediately so that black federal employees can access specialized counseling.
So there needs to be a unique approach to addressing the traumas that the workers have faced as a result of systemic discrimination.
In a statement to CBC News, the Immigration and Refugee Board says Agard's case is under review, adding that racism and discrimination in any form is unacceptable.
Sometimes when you suffer, you think you suffer alone. And unless you hear someone else's story, then you know that you're not suffering alone.
Agard has now joined the proposed class action suit. After 30 years as a public servant, she says it's time to push for a change. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Environment Canada has issued a special air quality statement for the City of Toronto, advising residents of high levels of air pollution and reduced visibility. You can see that for yourself from these pictures of our very hazy skyline today. And let's go back to Colette now with a look at the extended forecast. And Colette, we are seeing some of that smoke from the wildfires in northwestern Ontario make its way here.
Yeah, that are making their way and have been into our skies, right? So that's why it's making for these very red sunsets and the moon looking very red as well. You know, we're seeing a lot of scattering of the light because of all of that smoke. And the shorter, light, those wavelengths, the blues and purples, those are getting scattered away. So we get all those intense reds coming through. So we are going to be seeing some changes and actually some good news into northwestern Ontario where those fires are burning in terms of some rainfall coming through there. That will help a bit. Yes, there'll be some lightning strikes, so there could be a few new fires, but primarily we're going to look for the positive nature of that rainfall helping things out. We get into a pattern change here too as that front makes its way on through. It's another warm and humid day, but we get into not just showers but thunderstorms as well. And after that, as we head into Wednesday, you're going to find the conditions much more comfortable then. So it's quiet to start the day off. We get towards midday, could have just a few isolated showers at that point. You'll be seeing them certainly or experiencing them into cottage country and into northeastern Ontario. But by the afternoon, later afternoon, early evening, greater chance of seeing this activity. Yes, there is a risk for some severe weather, so we'll watch that carefully as some of these storms look a little stronger. And into the evening, southwestern Ontario, you'll really get into this batch of moisture coming through too. Behind that front, the winds will change direction, and we'll also see those dew points coming down, so not as sticky. Could have a few lingering light showers into early Wednesday morning, but the rest of Wednesday will be dry. Rainfall accumulations, this model wants to give some heavier amounts into southwestern Ontario and certainly into eastern Ontario, but don't be deceived. There'll be a few pockets in here, highly localized, that will see more than that about 10 millimeters that you saw there. Tonight, temperatures into southwestern Ontario for lows, and then daytime highs feeling like at least 35. Again, later in the day for you guys into the GTA. Quiet overnight tonight. Different story as things develop tomorrow. Humidex in some cases maybe 36, 37. So it's one more sticky day. Those westerly winds, though, that kicks in, and some cooler, more comfortable air on the way for midweek, Kelda.
Finally tonight, it's been 670 days since the Blue Jays last played a ball game here in Toronto. Now, the boys of summer are returning before summer ends. And as our Dan Takema reports, things are going to look a little different for fans.
They've played in Florida and in Buffalo, but finally, the Blue Jays will be back where they belong.
The Canadian team, right? So it's kind of good to have them in Canada.
the Jays have been cleared to play at home at Rogers Centre starting July 30th, and the organization says it's ready.
We are going to have staff trained and ready to support fans and making them feel comfortable here in the ballpark.
Tickets go on sale Thursday, but fans trying to grab seats for the first homestand are in for a very different experience at the stadium. The team is only allowing 15,000 tickets per game, much less than the nearly 50,000 the ballpark can hold. Fans will be screened for COVID-19 symptoms before being let in, and masks will be mandatory, except when eating or drinking. Where fans can watch the game will be different too. Only the 100 and 200 level seats will be open. The 500 level will be closed. 2/3 of the bowl tickets will be for standard seating, and the other third will be physically distanced pods up to 4 seats. Don't worry, the changes haven't cut out a critical part of the ballgame experience.
I think we're all missing a good ballpark hot dog. Concessions will be open. We will be operating with, again, health and safety in mind, and so all of the food will be cooked fresh but individually packaged.
April Weitzman is a longtime fan and says she expects the atmosphere to be indescribable.
I think this has been this excitement, this waiting for, and we didn't know if it was going to happen or they're going to return. And now that they have, there seems to be even more excitement amongst the fan base.
Very excited. Get some tickets at the nosebleeders and have some drinks. So, yay, go Jays!
The Blue Jays say the dome will remain open to increase airflow, and sanitization and physical distancing measures will be in place. Those measures will be there for the first 10 games, and tickets for future games will be announced later to make sure the team is following health and safety protocols at the time. Now, one thing to note is that the stadium is going cashless, and that's going to go for ticketing too. They're going to be mobile only, and that information is what the stadium is going to use to do contact tracing. Now, the thing that the team says it's looking forward to most, well, it's the roar of that hometown crowd. Dan Takema, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.